What is it, Bones? Why, it's a convenient plot device that tells me whatever I need to know in order to move the story forward. Damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a writer!
Today I'm making a tricorder. For this build, you'll need craft foam, super glue, filler material, black paint, silver paint, a strap, dilithium crystals, sanding tools, safety gear, scissors, razor pens, and a laser scalpel. Normally I'd start by hunting around for reference images on the internet, but luckily, countless fans have spent decades collecting this information for me, so here's a book. It's like analog Google. I can't tell you how refreshing it is to have accurate dimensions that I don't have to reverse engineer from a GIF. Now, I do not have the materials that I need, so I'm just going to use whatever's on hand. The transparent ABS or plexiglass is because for the heat sink, I need something incredibly thin that won't bend. It's not necessarily the best material for this. I'm only using it because I just moved and I have no idea where anything is. Thanks for labeling all my boxes shop equipment, Past Jake. You know, the irony is this shop is actually way better equipped than the old one. It's just I don't know where anything is. Not plugged in. This stuff is prone to shatter, so you gotta be super gentle with it. Way more gentle than you could ever hope to be with a saber saw. So I switched to a rotary tool. That's not even my rotary tool. I cannot find my rotary tool. It's the most important piece of shop equipment, allegedly. And I can't find it. I found my angle cutter. I can't find my rotary tool. Once I had those pieces cut out, I smoothed the edges and refined them to be identical on my belt sander. See how they match? Yeah. Symmetry for the win! Then I traced those onto a sheet of puzzle piece foam and cut them out. Then I smoothed those out. The diamond pattern can't easily be hidden on this prop, so those are going to have to be facing outside, which means they're going to have to be completely sanded away as well. The outer edges of the tricorder have this low profile yet highly angular shape, so I decided to recreate that as I sanded away the diamond texture side. This was admittedly a little monotonous, but if you just stick with it, eventually it'll pay off. You like my dust collection system? Just built it. Still got some kinks to work out. I built this to keep dust out of the air and away from that switch down there, which was acting like a little bit of a shovel, clogging up the contacts. And in that sense, it succeeded, but there's a lot of dust on that shield down there. So I think I'm gonna have to reposition this funnel in order to get it to be 100%. What was I doing? Building a tricorder. For the strap, I cut up an old belt and glued the ends to the interior side of the sides. Then I sandwiched the plexiglass over that. Worst sandwich ever. I'd rather eat a bowl of Greeblies for breakfast. I eat Greeblies and crap starships. When I turned it over, I noticed that the diamond pattern wasn't completely gone, so I covered it up with filler material, Alex Fast Dry, although many filler materials will work. Then I filled that cutout back in with scrap craft foam and moved on to the internal structure. So for the main cross beam in between, I'm going to use this piece of scrap foam because it's thicker. This is like actual half-inch floor mat. Yeah, that'll work. And this one is just kind of structural at the bottom. Now you can see with the contrast of the gray on the black that this is incredibly uneven. So that will have to be sanded. Once I was satisfied with the crossbeam's level of sandedness, I attached them to the sides. Well, a side. I'm gonna leave it open for a little bit just so it's easier to work with. I pre-scuffed the plastic so that the glue would have something to grip onto. As I did this, I transferred the measurements to parts that I knew I was gonna need later. But before closing it up, I'm going to work on all the little details on the inside, which I'm also gonna make primarily out of foam. These are dowels from TNT Cosplay Supply. They're not a sponsor, it's just they have more dowel options than craft stores generally do. This is pretty straightforward, so I'm just going to go off in a bit of a tangent here for a moment on just why I'm building this out of foam rather than buying a toy, which is an option. If you have the money and you need a dozen tricorders, they do make them. So why am I making a whole production out of this? And aside from the obvious build replica props out of foam, been doing it for a decade, there are a lot of instances where a toy isn't really going to work, especially in film or theater. If there's any kind of stunt or generic physical action, then a plastic toy is going to break, or worse, injure the actor. Even if it's not that heavy, plastic will cut you up, whereas it's much harder to get injured by foam. You really got to try to hurt someone with foam. I stand corrected. So, those reasons. Oh, also, this was a patron request. Little details. Scroll time! These videos are only made possible because of my generous patrons. Their support allows me to continue making these videos. If you're able, you can join them by following the link in the description down below. Then I can build larger, more elaborate, and more functional props, and present them to you in higher quality tutorials. Thanks, everybody! I made a simple scanner attachment out of a wider dowel section and 2mm craft foam. I'm gonna set that aside for now so it doesn't get lost in all my project's debris field here. And then I made the scanner screen. Simple enough. I added a foam frame. Once that was in, I felt confident enough that I could attach the other side panel without making my life difficult later on. And I was correct. Love saving myself difficulty. But then my printer was all like, hold my beer. So that was supposed to be a moire effect. Try that again. So was that. Hang on. I know how to fix this problem. There we go. Alright, that little debacle cost me half a day. There are so many delays on this build, guys, just from machines failing me. The printer, the 3D printer, the belt sander, my car. I mean, most of the muffler is still on there. Just can't trust machines. But I digress. Before painting, I heat sealed the foam so that it would be less absorbent. Then I painted it with gloss black acrylic house paint. Ignore the ruler, it's popping in the frame there. I've got the prop suspended from the camera mount and C47 the strap to a broken yardstick just to keep the straps apart and keep them from coming into contact with the wet paint. I had to do 3 layers in all. You could use Plastidip, but I think the gloss is actually a more accurate look for this prop. I also want to point out here that the more layers you put on here, the smoother it becomes. And this I want to be totally smooth, so it needs at least 1 more layer. However, this with just 2 layers is stippled, which is accurate. I'd like to just leave it like that, but I covered up some of the texture that didn't sand away with filler material, so it's shiny right here. So now I gotta get this to match this. I've literally painted myself into a corner. I used wax metallic finish on the scanner, and then I ate drumsticks for dinner, so yeah, I'm definitely gonna die now, or have metallic alien teeth. But first I have to make a casing. I used craft foam, cut 3.5 inches wide, but soon realized that it'd be a better idea to paint the inset silver highlights first, because they're inset. It's gonna be impossible to keep the silver off of the black parts if I do it after it's all closed up. Also did them more easily to get at parts like the, I'm gonna assume that's a memory coil. Okay, now before I close this up, I have to basically just have to align this. Oh wow, I can't see any white, so yeah, that's fine. I know it's overkill. I'm gonna attach that with hot glue. And that's how he died. I glued in the moire effect with hot glue. Barely heated up hot glue, by the way, because, you know, it's paper. I don't want the heat to have an effect on it. Then I glued in the casing, and I heat formed it to have a little bend in the bottom. In addition to aiding in the paint job, heat forming it will make that fold happen easier. When I realized how much extra material there was, I trimmed off the excess. I made the grips by cutting into a foam haft out at an angle so it had that sort of triangular, well, angled look to it when it lays flat. This took a couple tries to get right, but when I did, I glued those to the doors and added a foam tab. Then I painted those, let them sit to dry. Before starting the flip-up display, I wanted to make sure that I had all the necessary pieces. So I scrounged around for a screen, found this little magnifier, then I chopped up a hinge and got measurements for the outer casing. I heat formed it and cut frame pieces so that it would hold its shape. I did have to refine it a lot before it would fit. I had a bit of an internal battle while trying to choose a screen for the faceplate. It's because it's based on CRT screen technology, which I innately assume is always going to be standard definition, but the physical glass on the prop used in the show seems to be HD. So, you know, I was gonna use the magnifier, but it's SD. It's too small. Luckily, just as I was about to, commit to that decision, I found a 1990s headlamp with a much more accurate lens that I could use. Remember the 90s? Ah, the 90s. Capri Suns and CD players. Good times. Okay, Grandpa. I sanded away the edges and traced it onto a flat piece of foam. Then I cut out a frame for it and a smaller frame for the speaker. For the buttons, I'm going to use offcuts from Ben Eady's foam chainmail. Hey, so there's the first downside to Ben Eady's chainmail. These foam dots are charger slot sized. I don't even know how that happened. I glued those on, then drilled holes for the lights using an incredibly narrow aluminum pipe. I don't even remember why I have this. But yeah, if you're buying foam cutting pipes, get copper. Copper is way better once you get down to this scale. Then I glued it into the pivot mount and painted it black. After it had dried several layers later, I'll say that 3 times fast, nope. I gave the interior portion a top coat of Molotow silver. Then I put in the guts. The speaker mesh was made from screen door material that seemed to have a copper tint to it. I was going to put gold rub and buff on it, but no, I don't have to. Nice. Saved me from poisoning myself again. Then the hinge pin. Then some reflective tin foil, just to get the light to bounce around. I threw a light in there. And finally, the screen. That's just a tension fit, because I may need to get in there again. I attached the whole assembly to the tricorder, making sure it lined up properly with the casing when it's both closed and open. There's a little bit of a bevel on the back, just so that it can not get caught on the casing when it swivels. Then I attached the smaller door. I placed the scanner in one of of the compartments, but I couldn't help but notice that the vast majority of the internal space was going away. So I decided to add a power source. Not sure if it's accurate, but I don't ever remember seeing that part of the tricorder open on the show, which is astounding considering how many times I've seen that show. Now for the power source, I'm going to use dilithium crystal shards, which are totally not orange kyber crystals, available for purchase in my Etsy store, link below. You know, despite the whole wars versus Trek conflict, really not that different. What's super weird are those episodes of Star Trek where they're totally doing Star Wars, and vice versa, the episodes of Clone Wars where they're kind of doing Wrath of Khan. It's all the same shit. And I was finished. Now I can go to other planets and scan for life forms, which I just love to do. But I'll let someone else handle it this time. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this build, then you can subscribe and hit the bell icon to see future prop builds. The builds take a very long time and are very expensive to make, so once again, I would like to thank my patrons, without whom the videos and the channel's continued existence would not be possible. So if you're able, then you can follow the link below to help me make these videos larger, more elaborate, and way more awesome. And if you're not able to support, I think I have hundreds of tutorials at this point, so you can just start the props playlist, and I guarantee I'll have a new upload before you finish. Alright, happy crafting. See you later.
Seriously, he does that. He wipes his face with his gun for some reason.